Alright folks, welcome to the Don's channel. I am the Donfather and I'm now going to quickly go through a couple of the games over the sort of from Thursday on to today. This is Saturday obviously. Richmond obviously, I think I've covered that there. 39-71 against Hawthorn. Hawthorn absolutely smashed Richmond. Credit where credit is due. I actually thought Richmond would have won this one. I thought they would have bounced back from the draw at Collingwood, but they didn't. They got absolutely annihilated and Hawthorn thoroughly deserved the win. Friday then, the Bulldogs versus the Giants, and do you know what? 2 losses in a row to start 2020 for the Bulldogs, and I was getting a wee bit depressed to tell you the truth, because I thought they lacked that sort of gutsiness that I love about the Bulldogs. They lacked that fight, that up for a scrap mentality. It was all missing in the first 2 games, but it was not missing in this very, very heated exchanges between, at times, very, very heated exchanges between the Bulldogs and the Giants. But do you know what? I think that played into the sort of mentality of the Bulldogs a little bit. The Giants were well up for the fight and the Bulldogs were just too good for them at it. They tried to drag them into a dogfight and the Bulldogs won with experience. Don't pick a fight with a Bulldog, you will lose. Absolutely superior, and I thought throughout the game they were superior. It finished 57-33 to the Bulldogs, and that gets 2020 well and truly up and running for the Doggies. So Saturday then, this morning for me, obviously this afternoon for you down under, North against Swans. I backed North to win this, and you know what, it was a very, very, it was a decent game. It was a decent game, but it was an arm wrestle throughout. You know, nobody really, I suppose, was clearly the best side. I think Swans did actually deserve the win. They won by 11 points, 60-71 to Swans at the Marvel. And you know what? I think the Swans needed that. After last week, I thought I was quite disappointed in the Swans so far. And North have had 2 wins in a row. I thought North, I liked Zurhar last week, I like Anderson. They've got that sort of aggressive mentality as well. There's a couple of players in there as well with the flair and skill. I thought North were going to do it, and they just came up short. I thought Swans thoroughly deserved their win, even though it wasn't the most entertaining of games. They came out on top. So then the game that I'm actually going to cover is Collingwood versus St Kilda. It finished an absolute drubbing, to tell you the truth. First quarter then, it was 33-13 to Collingwood. They came out the traps. I mean, you can accuse them of not scoring a lot of goals. I think the commentators were covering that as well, and that was much to, it's been questions that's been put to Nathan Buckley so far this season, was why are they so low scoring, what's the problem? And he didn't like that. I think he prides himself in the defensive work of the Collingwood team. Very, very assured in defence, aren't they? They're not a team that's easy to score against, that's for sure, but you can't really deny that they haven't been ruthless in front of goal. Well, that kind of changed today. They managed 5 goals in the first quarter through 2 from Stevenson, 2 from Elliott and 1 from Sidebottom. And 2 goals from St Kilda coming in the way of Butler and Marshall. And that name Butler, he was on the losing side today, but I actually thought he was magnificent for the Saints today. Really enjoyed his performance. There's a couple of guys at St Kilda that are really impressing me so far. Even though St Kilda's always going to be one of those teams, aren't they? I don't see them being a top 8 side this year, but they will get results, there's no doubt about that. The way they can grind out games, they've got quality and fire in their belly, and Butler is one of those players, and Steele's another one that I'm enjoying watching. And of course you all know how I feel about Brad Hill. I think he's sensational. So I do feel that there is quality in St Kilda and aggression, and they will, as I say, get results, but they will also lose games. This game was a drubbing, but there was individual performances that you've got to give credit to St Kilda for, and that's why I've mentioned those 2 names, Steele and Butler. I thought they were played well. In that quarter though, Steele by name, Steele by nature, I wrote down, great tackle in this quarter. Check it out, hopefully it'll be played in the highlights back from the Collingwood St Kilda game. Really good tackle from Steele in the first quarter. So first quarter finished 33-13 to Collingwood. Exactly the same way for the second quarter then. First half was a really good half of footy. It finished 64-26, nearly double the score lines of the first quarter. Collingwood had 5 goals again to St Kilda's 2, identical in terms of goal kicking anyway. Myercheck with 2, I thought he was brilliant today. Brown with 1, Adams with 1, again I thought Adams was strong, really physical and chipped in with a couple of goals, really good today. And De Goey with the other for Collingwood in this quarter. King and Butler again with his second of the day for St Kilda. Really explosive first half, lots of goals on display, really entertaining match. Well, that's where it ended at half time. I think both teams struggled to come out in the second half. Brown with the only goal for Collingwood and Marsh with the only goal for Saints in the third quarter. It was an arm wrestle from half time, let me be honest with you. St Kilda huffed and puffed. I thought they really tried their hardest to break down Collingwood, but they couldn't. As I've said at the top before the game, I think Collingwood are very assured in defence, and that proved under a lot of pressure from St Kilda. Really struggled to have really a lot of impact on the Collingwood goal in terms of creating set shots or winning set shots. Sorry, getting a lot of shots off at goal. Collingwood sort of nullified any of that. So credit to Collingwood defence when it's due today. They really were good at the back. So as I said, Brown and Marsh were the only goals of that half, of 1 apiece for Collingwood and Saints. Second quarter in the second half. Fourth quarter I should say, Adams with the only goal of this quarter to make it finish 81-37 for the Magpies, who were phenomenal in certain spells today. Obviously second quarter they were a wee bit flat in front of goal, but defensively phenomenal. So they thoroughly deserved their win. I mentioned the 2 players for best on ground for me, and I think a lot of people get dragged into looking at stats, looking at figures on the screens or on your paper. Don't do that. Watch the game and see sometimes a disposal can be a better disposal than another one, if you know what I mean. You could have 9 disposals and have 9 average disposals, or 9 disposals which have actually led to a goal scoring opportunity, an assist, or even ended up and you maybe getting a goal yourself. So look at actually what had came of these disposals as well. And I thought what Myercheck added to the game today was really good. He tackled each bit. Adams and him, really strong players. They do the dirty work, they do the hard yards, they cover a lot of miles, I'd imagine, on a footy field, but also they can chip in with goals like they did today. Myercheck's been a player I admired from last year. I thought he was very good today. I would actually say he edged it a little bit for me in my own personal best on ground. As I say, I don't let stats blind me. I just go by what I thought I saw in the game myself and who I enjoyed performance wise, what they did to get you on the front foot, and what they did for the team. Myercheck, my best on ground today. Just the notes were, second half was poor, but defensively Collingwood were strong. Saints huffed and puffed, came up short. I think they were decent in the first half. Saints, Collingwood were phenomenal in the first half, but Saints have got a lot to build on. Even though they got smashed, there's a lot of individual positives to take from that Saints game. I think Collingwood were just in ruthless fashion in the first half and won the game because of their first half performance. So on to the next 2 games today. Geelong versus Kelton. What a game this must have been. I listened to most of the second half on the radio. Kelton going in at 3/4 time were up by 35 points. Well, Geelong came back. I think there was a couple of decisions that have went to the review. A couple of goal scoring saves by fingertips from Kelton, which has led them to winning the games. Absolutely last gasp defending from Kelton. It was described as parking the bus, which is a term I'm familiar with in the soccer world. Kelton did not know how to defend this lead well. I think they held on by the skin of their teeth, but they'd done enough in the first 3 quarters to win the game eventually by 2 points, 77-79, to get Kelton's winning start off in 2020. Congratulations to Kelton on that one. Geelong were phenomenal, of course, last week against the Hawks. They'll be very disappointed, and this is what happened, I think, last week to Kelton as well. They came back so well and failed at the final hurdle by a point. They lost last week, but they've won by 2. So do you know what goes around comes around in some aspects in life, doesn't it? And credit to Kelton for holding on, just albeit it doesn't matter how you do it, it's about doing it. And as I say, they've got their winning start off their absolute fantastic fashion, to be honest with you. what a game this was. I watched this live. I thought, I never actually wrote down any details. I thought, do you know what, I'm going to give it to Lachie Neale. Lachie Neale, him and Patrick Cripps, from what I've seen on the stats, I know I've just said about stats, don't be blinded by them. From what I was listening to and what I seen from the stats, Patrick Cripps and Lachie Neale are certainly up there again with Nat Fife for the Brownlow. They have to be already. They're unbelievable. Lachie Neale was my best on ground from what I saw. Sensational player this man is. I'm not going to give you too much of a review of the game. I think Eagles are struggling. I don't know what it is. They're struggling. Something's not right with them. They're not getting their natural game getting played. Their big players haven't turned up yet in 2020, I don't feel. That's 2 losses in a row now for them. They've lost by 30-point margin, 74-44. And I actually think the 44 was quite generous, to be honest with you, Eagles. When Eagles got their goals back, they got their goals back. And then they were hit back by another 2 or 3 goals. You know, I don't think they really got into this at all. And it's worrying because I think next week they have Port, and I'll make my assessment on my predictions obviously midweek for round 4. But if Port win convincingly at the weekend, I think they're playing Freo, aren't they, tomorrow? If Port can win that one convincingly, then I'm going to put them down, I believe, for my prediction to beat the Eagles as well. I think it's at the Metricon or the Gabba, obviously in the Queensland hub. So all in all, West Coast Eagles, it's not looking good, but likewise on the other side of it, the Lions, that's 2 wins in a row now for them. They've put themselves up in the top 8, I would imagine, with that. I've not checked the ladder just yet, but the Lions they're back now playing to a level I think they sort of were finishing last year at, and it was a team I thoroughly enjoyed. Charlie the Chopper Cameron, obviously he's always flying around in the Harleys after he scores. The Chopper, the old Chopper, Charlie Chopper Cameron, that's my nickname for him anyway. What a player, I love him. He's really entertaining, albeit he never scored many today. I think he actually might have only hit 1, but I just enjoy him. I really enjoy watching him. He is on 9 goals now. That's why I mentioned him, even though he got the solitary goal. I think he's on 9 goals, so could he be odds on now for he's put himself right up bang into the mix for the Coleman medal. I think Jeremy Cameron, obviously last year's Coleman medalist, has really struggled to get going in 2020. It's very much unlike him, but I'd imagine the better that the Giants start to play, obviously they were without a couple of key players or a couple of injuries as well during the game against the Doggies. Maybe the service coming up to him wasn't just as good, but even his own individual performance, regardless of the service, was flat, I thought. So Cameron certainly, Jeremy Cameron certainly behind Charlie Cameron so far in the goal count, the goal race for the Coleman. Great stuff anyway, really enjoyed the footy. Looking forward to the games tomorrow. We've got Gold Coast Suns, who have tipped to beat the Crows. I think Crows, everything's going absolutely wrong right now. Really bad press coming out of them. Even if they deserve it or not, it's really not good, is it? It's all negative press surrounding the Crows. But the Gold Coast Suns, I think, positive win last week. Really good win, to be honest with you, last week. Incredible result. I think it was great. It's great. You love stories like that, don't you? But can they do it again? Can they get 2 wins in a row? I would love to see it. I think they can. And I've backed them against the Crows. Essendon versus Melbourne's off because of the obviously the breaking news today of Conor McKenna testing positive for COVID-19. The good thing about it is it hasn't stopped footy, which was the sensible decision in the end. I think we've seen a lot more cases rising in Victoria, so maybe it will, AFL have to keep an eye on that. Maybe the Victoria State Government will be keeping an eye on this, and the rules could possibly change for footy in Victoria. We do not know. We'll have to play that by ear, but I'd imagine that the sensible thing to do, if that is the case, is to have Victoria teams playing out of maybe South Australia, Western Australia, maybe even Northern Territory. Look at it, why not? Anywhere you can get the footy on. Let's not stop footy because Victoria, the only state, is getting a spike. Common sense has to prevail, and I think following government guidelines, social distancing, doing all the things like before, try to keep your visiting down to a minimum in Victoria if you can. It all will help. I think it's been looked at. I don't know if Conor McKenna's I think he's contracted it from actually being back in Australia and not came with it from Ireland. I've seen a lot of stuff against him on social media that was nothing short of disgusting, borderline racist. Bearing in mind we've had Black Lives Matter campaign, and the AFL's jumped on that. I'm not saying anything about any of that. I don't want to go into the political route of that, but you don't want to see a guy being victimised because he's contracted a virus that you cannot see and has swooped the world in its millions. So it's hardly his fault that he's contracted it, however he's done it. But to be as rude as what I've seen on him is just not right. He's a professional, he's a nice guy, he does not deserve the abuse, and I wish him well. I hope he doesn't get sick with it. I don't think he will. He's young, fit, healthy. I think he'll bounce back. He's asymptomatic, he doesn't seem to be showing any signs. He's been tested I think around 7 times when he's been back, and this is the first one that's tested positive. Don't think anybody else tested positive within Essendon, so that game I'd imagine will be rescheduled in a couple of weeks, or 2 or 3 weeks. You'd imagine there'll be dates set for that, and when Essendon can play again. I think Essendon should be up and running next week anyway. They'll be testing them like crazy now to make sure there's no other positive results within that club, and I like to think that they'd be playing footy again. But last game then anyway, Freo versus Port. I put Port down. This is at the Metricon, and I believe Port will run out victors on that. I think Nat Fyfe has a huge part to play in Freo, really do. I think he inspired a bit of a comeback last week. He is really the heartbeat of that footy club, there's no doubt about it. If he's not playing, Freo aren't playing, and if he's not playing well, usually Freo aren't playing well either. So they really need to be have him hitting the ground running, if you like, straight away in the first quarter. And what I've noticed about these short quarters is you really must get a good start, a convincing lead in the first half of these games, because usually the teams that can get a convincing lead in the first half can hold out. Because of the shorter quarters, there's less time to close the gap if you have got it. So definitely you want to be coming out the traps in these shortened games very, very aggressively and very, very quickly, and get your team in front, and I believe you'll run out winners. So if Freo can do that, they've got a chance against Port, but I think Port are strong. I think this is the time now for Port to go, do you know what, let's start backing ourselves, believing in what we can do. We're not just a young side anymore, we're a quality side. Let's not focus on we're a future side, let's focus on we're a side for now. We can do it now. They need to back themselves, they need to believe in themselves. The quality is there. The question is, can they travel now in this hub and deliver the results? They've played the Gold Coast Suns, which on paper people would have said before a footy was kicked this year they were the worst side in the competition. So they beat them, they beat arguably the worst side in the competition in Crows by an emphatic margin in their own backyard. But now they've got to travel, now they've got to play against a team that actually aren't bad themselves in Freo. They're a bit down in their luck, but I believe Port should come out victors anyway, so I'm really looking forward to it. Thanks very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the footage so far, and tomorrow will be enjoyable, but do stay tuned for breaking news around Victoria. Hopefully all's well. I'm glad that the AFL's seen common sense and kept all the other footy going, because one case isn't enough to stop the footy in the footy world. It's about now keeping everybody isolated and safe, and getting the footy played. That's the bottom line. Let's get this footy played. That's what everybody wants, and I'm really looking forward to watching the rounds progress and see who can hold top spot and see who's in contention for the top 8 in the next few weeks. Thanks very much everyone, and I'll talk to you all soon. Goodbye.